Hi, Ben Johnson here with High Tech Friday. This week I'm going to show you some tips and tricks with the Google Classroom. First of all, to get there, go ahead and type in classroom.google.com into your address bar. Once there, you can prompt in with your school email and password. A couple of things that I want to mention. One is that the Google Classroom by itself is pretty useless, but put it together with Google Drive, which you can get to by typing in drive.google.com. Then some magical things can happen. So you'll be using the two of these in combination, Classroom in combination with Drive. Now, if you're like most teachers, you have a whole bunch of old Word docs that you need to bring into your Google Drive. I just want to quickly point out that you can click on this cog here in Google Drive and go to your settings, and then make sure that you've got this Convert Uploads checked. Then any Word docs, Word, PowerPoint, slideshows will get converted into the Google Doc format. So once you have that checked, you can just go New, File Upload, and you can upload the file or an entire folder. So you want to do that because you don't want to be putting any of your old Word docs into your Google Classroom, just because it's not convenient for students to type on those. So once you've done that, that's the first tip. Then you'll go back into your Google, well, let's see, while I'm here, I'll stick with Drive. So what you want to do with all of your assignments that you put in the Google Classroom is either make a new Google Doc or use one that's uploaded and converted. And so I would just number those. That's a best practice, is just to go ahead and number any of your assignments that you add, and that's just going to make it easier for students to find. So I might do number 1, slavery essay. Now I would argue here that the teacher ought to put the scaffolding in for the students to give them some guidance around their slavery essay. So teacher should put scaffolding here, or questions, or whatever they want the student to do on that particular Google Doc. But I would try to make a Google Doc for nearly every assignment that you make. All right, so now that you've got the template, what you're going to do is go back to your Google Classroom. I've got many here on my screen, but I'll pretend like I've got a new class. I'll hit this plus and I'll create a class, and I might just call this US History P2, and I would make one of these for each period. And I'll create that US History period 2, and it'll take just a minute for that to be created. If you don't like the books that show up here, you can select a different theme. In a minute I'll show you how to upload a photo. But in this case, we just want to give our students this code RY0WAO, and they'll be able to join this class using that plus button that you just used a minute ago, but they'll be joining the class instead of creating it. So as a teacher, you're going to click on this plus sign and you're going to go to Create Assignment. And this is where you'll just have your numbering match the assignment that you just made in the template. You can give it instructions, a due date, and a time. All of these things are optional. Okay, you really don't want to be attaching with this paperclip unless it's a PDF or some document that you just want students to read. Anything that you want students to type on and turn into, you want to use this Google Drive. So we're going to click on the Google Drive icon. I'm going to quickly find that number 1 slavery essay. There it is. So I'll just add that, and by default it's just going to make students so they can view that file. Most of the time you're going to want to make a copy for each student because they're going to be typing their essay on that, turning it into. You can grade it electronically. You can only do this at the time of the initial deployment. If you forget to do that, you're going to just have to delete that assignment and start over. Or there's a little trick to reuse it that I'll show you in a second, but most of the time you'll just have students can make a copy for each student. Now I can add more Google Docs, I can add YouTube videos, maybe students are going to watch a video before they type their essay, or I can make links out to say the PBS website or other websites that I want my students to use. I've got a choice to either assign or save. And so if you want to save and come back to it so students don't see it, you can save it as a draft. If you're ready to assign it immediately, you just go ahead and hit assign. Now it's going to make a folder and a file in the students' Google Drive in their classroom folder. You'll just want to tell students that they don't even need to look or bother with that. It'll just happen automatically. As students turn that into you, you'll see this number go up here. You can do real-time feedback, real-time grading just by clicking on this assignment, and you can actually click on their paper and watch them type live on the spot. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, adding co-teachers, if you go to this About tab, you can invite a teacher. The only problem here is that sometimes the teacher won't appear, and that happens if you've never shared anything with them in the past or they're not in your contacts. So in order to get the teacher's name to appear here, just share a Google Doc with them and vice versa. They can share something back with you. That way when you type their email prefix here, their name will pop up. Otherwise you may not see them and you may not be able to add them to your class. Okay. One thing I want to point back out here at this stream is that if you make a copy for each student, sometimes that won't appear directly on their screen. You may have to tell students to click on this assignment name in order to see that particular assignment. So don't be surprised if students don't see this right out in front. They may need to click on the assignment name first. All right, a few other features I want to point out. If you make a mistake and you forget to add this to your other periods, or you forgot to make a copy for each student, there's a neat feature here. I can use this plus sign and I can reuse this post. I can pick the class and select it, and then I can pick the assignment and reuse it. And then from here, if I made a mistake, like I forgot to make a copy for each student, I can change that here. And if I forgot to put it in my other classes, I can also change that here and I can reassign that. Okay, I'm going to pause this for the. So now that I've reused that assignment and deployed it in my other classes and fixed some of the mistakes, I can go back to this original assignment, use these dots, and I can delete that one that had the mistake in it. So that reuse post is really helpful. Some other things I wanted to show you is that as students turn their work in, you'll be able to click on it here and view it. And one thing that teachers don't know about is this editing mode has a suggesting mode, and this is just like words track changes. So as a teacher, you can go ahead and turn on that suggesting mode, and you can begin editing the student's paper in real time, which is very helpful rather than waiting a week for them to type this paper to find out that it's all wrong. So a lot of teachers have adopted this notion of real-time feedback, and that is just looking at the student's work immediately as they're going through that process and correcting any misconceptions they have immediately rather than waiting a week to find out that the student misunderstood the assignment and really wasted a lot of time creating something that you weren't looking for. You can also comment by right-clicking and adding a comment. So I suspect in a lot of cases teachers will just simply be commenting because the suggesting here might be too in your face, at least initially. You might save this until you're ready for the final sort of draft feedback, but I think comments will come in really helpful here. All right, I'll turn that back to editing mode. So make sure that for the final grading you turn on the suggesting mode, which is just like track changes, in addition to making comments here. And that real-time feedback is really going to help students with correct those misconceptions that students have and get them back on the right track before they waste too much time. So I'm a really big advocate for that. All right, last thing. If you don't like the banners here, you can look at other ones by selecting a different theme, and there are lots of nice ones out there. However, you may not find one that you like, and so I just wanted to show you that you can always open up a search bar and type in something like U.S. History banner, and just type the word banner behind it, and you'll find many teachers have already made these banners. So we can just go to images, and as long as you find one that's at least 800 by 200, you can go ahead and then save that banner. So there's no need for you necessarily to reinvent the wheel. Okay. Yes, these are probably copyrighted, but I don't think teachers are going to mind if you borrow that privately for your class. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and click on that, view the image, right click, and save that image as, and you can just put it on your desktop or in some other spot where you can find that easily. So I'll just go ahead and right click on that, put that on my desktop, name it in the way that you can find it, and then you can go back to your Google Class, upload that photo, from your computer. And I think I have that on my desktop is where I click to save that. And let's see if we can find that banner. And here's that US history banner. Let's try that again. I think it might be time to restart my computer. Okay. And then you can resize and reposition that banner and then go ahead and select and add that theme. Now you could find and search for a Halloween banner just as quickly and easily, so if you almost want to use this as a sort of a bulletin board for your class, I think that students would find that entertaining, so feel free to change that up. It's super easy, especially if you're using already pre-made banners that you're just searching for. Last thing I want to just show you is this add a question, which is a nice new feature. So you can do it as a warm-up activity or for any purpose really. You can just create a question here with the plus sign. What do you think about Ahmad being suspended for his homemade clock? Okay. Now I can put a YouTube video that explains that piece there for the students to watch, and then I can ask that question, and it's going to by default allow students to see and reply each other's answers, and you can either turn that off or leave it on. But I think that's really a nice way to teach that digital citizenship piece. We see a lot of inappropriate use of social networking sites and newspaper comments, and so I think this might be a nice way for teachers to help teach students how to be respectful in those forums. So it might be a nice way to begin every class, but frankly you could use it for just about any use. Alright, so those are a few tips and tricks for the Google Classroom. Thanks for watching this week's High Tech Friday. For the purpose of our assignment, you can just simply submit your class code into our Google Classroom and that will meet the homework requirements. But please do try this with your class. As I've told teachers today, this Google Classroom tool has become just as important to me now as my overhead projector and transparencies were back in the 90s when I started teaching. So try this tool out. I think it's a real game changer, and feel free to use it with clubs and activities and other organizations you're involved with. Thanks again.